In 1943, with World War II raging on multiple continents, historian and intelligence officer David Carlisle found himself reflecting on his studies of ancient wars. Amidst the chaos of modern battles, he began to see patterns that echoed the conflicts of centuries past. Every great struggle, he realized, was woven into the fabric of human history, shaped by the ambitions and lessons of ancient conflicts that had once drawn lines across empires, driven nations to their knees, and defined the limits of human endurance. As he traveled from North Africa to Europe, Carlisle could almost feel the shadows of past empires, Roman, Persian, Macedonian, and Carthaginian, overlapping with the modern battlegrounds. His time at university had been spent poring over histories of ancient military strategy, and now he felt those echoes more than ever. The conflicts of his time were, in many ways, the culmination of ancient ambitions and timeless tensions. Carlisle began to keep a journal, weaving together the stories of ancient wars that had sown the seeds for the global conflict he was now part of. Chapter 1: Rome and the Blueprint of Imperial Ambition. As Carlisle crossed through Italy on his way to North Africa, he was struck by the crumbling ruins of Roman aqueducts, forums, and temples, symbols of an empire that had once spanned continents. The Roman Empire, Carlisle knew, was more than just a massive state. It was the world's first true superpower. Rome's relentless expansion and its ability to assimilate diverse cultures set the template for future empires, including the European powers of his own time. The Roman strategy of conquest wasn't solely driven by brute force. It was powered by a deeply ingrained belief in Rome's destiny to civilize the world. Generals like Caesar, Scipio, and Trajan didn't just conquer. They built roads, established trade networks, and constructed towns in conquered lands. They wove a tapestry of control that made the Roman Empire resilient and far-reaching. In the late 19th century, Carlisle had seen European empires drawing inspiration from Rome, using the rhetoric of civilization to justify their colonial conquests. Nations like Britain and France took on the Roman ideal of spreading culture and governance, but they added a new layer: industrial power and a thirst for global resources. Carlisle thought of the North African territories he was headed toward. Just as Rome had once clashed with Carthage for control over North Africa, so too were the Allied and Axis powers struggling for dominance in these ancient lands. The echoes of Rome's wars could be felt in every dusty road, every ancient fortification now repurposed for modern combat. Chapter 2: Carthage and the Perils of Eternal Rivalry. As his unit approached the Mediterranean coastline, Carlisle's thoughts turned to Carthage, Rome's arch-rival. The Punic Wars between Rome and Carthage were, in many ways, a foreshadowing of the ideological rivalries Carlisle now saw tearing the world apart. Carthage, with its wealth from trade and its impressive naval prowess, represented a powerful alternative model to Rome's militaristic state. In these ancient wars, Carlisle saw a fundamental tension that had resurfaced in the global conflict: the struggle between expansionist ideologies. Carthage's legendary general, Hannibal Barca, had brought Rome to its knees by marching across the Alps with his army and nearly capturing the city. Hannibal's invasion of Italy was a lesson in tactical brilliance, and his daring campaign left a scar on Rome that defined its military ambitions for generations. Rome, desperate to prevent another Carthaginian invasion, doubled down on its military power, launching its own invasions and solidifying its control over the Mediterranean. In Carlisle's time, he saw this same fervor for domination between Germany and the Allied powers. Germany, with its powerful war machine, had risen as a rival to the Western Allies, much like Carthage had threatened Rome's dominance centuries earlier. And just as Rome had resorted to total war to defeat Carthage, Carlisle feared that the Allies, too, might be forced to confront Germany with unyielding force, a conflict that could only end in complete surrender or annihilation. Chapter 3. Alexander the Great and the Pursuit of a Unified World. As Carlyle readied his regiment for battle in Greece, he felt the lingering spirit of Alexander the Great, the young Macedonian king who had forged one of the largest empires in history by the age of 30. Alexander's vision had been grander than simple conquest. He sought to unite East and West, blending cultures and spreading Hellenistic ideals. But this vision of unity came with a cost, leading to wars that stretched across Asia, leaving behind cities, scars, and a fragile legacy of cultural fusion. Carlyle knew that Alexander's conquests had inspired leaders across the ages. Napoleon had seen himself as a new Alexander, and even the British Empire, with its expansive colonies, took notes from Alexander's methods of cultural assimilation. In World War II, he saw echoes of this ambition in the way Hitler aspired to build a vast Germanic empire that would unify Europe under a single ideology. But Alexander's dream of unity had been a fragile one, as Carlyle knew from history. When Alexander died, his empire fractured into warring states, each ruled by one of his former generals. Carlyle feared a similar fate awaited Europe, where even if the war ended in victory for the Allies, the different ideologies, national interests, and cultural tensions would pull the continent apart. He wondered if it was even possible to sustain a world order built on conquest, or if peace would always remain an elusive ideal. Chapter 4. Persia and the Shadow of Resilience. Carlyle was eventually stationed on the Eastern Front, where he saw the Soviet forces resisting the German advance with unbreakable resolve. Watching the Russian soldiers hold the line in the face of devastating attacks reminded Carlyle of ancient Persia, an empire that had withstood invasions from Greece and Rome through sheer resilience and unity. The Persian Empire, vast and multicultural, had been ruled by the Achaemenids, who maintained control through tolerance, allowing their diverse subjects to retain their customs and religions. When the Greeks invaded under Alexander, Persia's strength lay in its vast reserves and in the loyalty of its people, who saw themselves as part of a greater empire. The Soviets, too, were drawing on their people's resilience, uniting diverse ethnicities under the banner of communism in a fight for survival. Carlyle marveled at the similarities. Just as Persia had weathered foreign invasions for centuries, the Soviet Union was holding its ground in brutal winters, using its vastness as a defense. He couldn't help but feel that the lessons of the Persian Empire, its tolerance, resilience, and ability to draw strength from diversity, were embedded in the Soviet resistance. Chapter 5. The Lessons of Byzantium and the Importance of Strategy. As Carlyle moved through Eastern Europe, he encountered the ruins of Constantinople's fortifications, remnants of the Byzantine Empire that had once stood as a bridge between East and West. Byzantium's story was one of constant resilience, an empire that had survived for 1,000 years by mastering the art of diplomacy and defense. The Byzantine Empire, with its capital at Constantinople, had faced threats from all sides, surviving through a combination of strategic alliances, clever diplomacy, and advanced military tactics. They had perfected the art of defense, using sophisticated fortifications and the legendary Greek fire to fend off invaders. Carlyle saw that the strategies Byzantium had used were being mirrored in the careful maneuvers of the Allied powers, who balanced multiple fronts and shifted resources to adapt to changing threats. The Allies had learned from the Byzantines that victory didn't always come from sheer force, but from endurance, intelligence, and the ability to outwit one's enemies. Carlyle realized that the Byzantines had left a legacy that wasn't just about military prowess. It was about understanding the art of survival. Byzantium had taught the modern world the value of strategy over brute strength, a lesson that Carlyle believed would be crucial in the long fight for victory. Epilogue. Reflections on Ancient Wars and the Future of Conflict. When the war finally ended in 1945, Carlyle returned home, haunted by the echoes of ancient wars he had seen come to life on the battlefields of Europe, Africa, and Asia. He pored over his journal, filled with reflections on Rome's ambition, Carthage's rivalry, Alexander's dream, Persia's resilience, and Byzantium's strategies. As he turned the final pages, Carlyle wondered if humanity would ever break free from these ancient patterns. Modern leaders had adopted new weapons and technologies, but they had drawn upon the same ancient impulses, alliances, and rivalries. Carlyle knew that the wars of the ancient world had not just shaped history, they had set a pattern for the future, a blueprint for conflict that was still unfolding. He mused on whether humanity could ever learn from the lessons of the past to avoid repeating them. Perhaps, he thought, the true legacy of ancient wars was not in the empires they built or the victories they won, but in the reminder that the cost of ambition, rivalry, and conquest was always borne by the people. He hoped that future generations might break free from these timeless cycles and find a way to build a world that didn't need to look back on ancient battles for inspiration.